Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the update 1.85 dev server and it's time to have a look at a newer Japanese vehicle. This is the Type 89. It's a rank 6 battle rating 8.0. I suppose you'd call it an IFV. You would also call it kind of like it's in the same area as the Bradley. It's designed to attack targets larger than it, but also it's there to support infantry if required. If we have a look at the Type 89's armor, you don't really find anything special. 35mm front, then you have 15mm on the top, with 5mm areas for aircraft to pinch at. Then you got 35 on the turret, with 500mm on this little block here, which is kind of odd. I don't understand why this is at 500 meters compared to everything else. So that is something to watch out for. On top of this, you have quite a thin turret ring of 10mm. This means that pretty much all small arms fire will be able to kill this thing. Even down to some of the lower calibers in the game. Then there's only 20mm on the side. I should put on external armor as well, just to show you the tracks and everything like that. But 20mm on the side and on the side of the turret as well. Then we've got 15mm at the back and also 10mm on the top. So once again, planes and helicopters will just annihilate this thing. 20mm overall on the sides, and yeah, the interesting thing though is when you look at it, it does have an engine, 600 horsepower, so very beefy. Then you have a fuel tank and transmission, but then you have a layer of composite armor. Now this composite armor is here to defend the driver and the machine gunner, which is sat in these positions behind each other, and then you have two men in the turret. So this here is just designed to be able to make sure that rounds don't go through and hit the ammunition, or the ATGMs, which are sat below here, or hit these two guys. Now the question is, will this work as intended? The one thing that we don't see from this composite armor is how thick it actually is. Now we do need to know how thick it is in order to see if it's going to work well or not. One thing that is definitely true though is there is no composite on the outside, there is no ERA, so what you see is what you get when it comes from the armor point of view. So we do have to have a conversation on whether this thing's going to get hull broken or not. 35mm I believe is above the threshold. The threshold is normally around 30mm now when we look at most vehicles. So I feel like it's not going to get hull broken, but then again, I can't be too sure. With a 4-man crew and also the 2 sets of crew being spaced out quite easily, if this thing doesn't get hull broken, it's kind of hard to kill in one shot if you're trying to kill all the crew, because if you kill the turret, then you still have 2 guys left. If you kill that bottom bit, then you still have 2 guys left in the turret. So overall, 2 squads of 2, meaning that whatever happens, you should be able to survive more than 1 round from that point of view. Then you have a bunch of ammunition just stored all over the place. A ton of it is behind the gunner's head, and then you have a ton of it down below here, and also a ton of it behind the composite wall right here. Now, the main gun that you see, this long-barreled thing, is a 35mm Oerlikon KDE cannon with 251 rounds of ammunition. Then you have some ATGMs, which give you the Type 79 ATGMs. So they do have a specific name in real life. I can't remember it right now. I apologize. But in game, if we have a look at it, they have 700mm of penetration. So this is an 8.0 vehicle with 700mm ATGMs. On top of this, if you have a look at the 35mm gun, you have this set of rounds, which is basically HE with an APIT on the end. Then you have APIT with a HE on the end, and then of course you have the HVAP, let's go party, let's annihilate. So 112mm of penetration on this 35mm at 8.0. What is nice about this over the Bradley is, well, first of all, you actually have to scroll for the modifications. So that is something, if you've never seen this before, which I'm not surprised because it doesn't actually exist for other vehicles, you're going to have to scroll to get that last modification, improved optics for rank 4 modifications. What is nice though, that I was saying, is that this has scouting, whereas the Bradley doesn't, and this means that the Type 89 does have more flexibility in taking it into higher tier battles, especially with this ATGM. 200 meters per second isn't the fastest ATGM on the market, but 700 millimeters of penetration is very good when it comes to it. It also has access to a 7.62 machine gun, which is sat in a coaxial position right here. So therefore, small arms fire is also there. So we basically have a cannon which has about 100 millimeters of pen once it's fully upgraded, and then 2 sets of ATGMs which can get loaded and be able to fire 6 ATGMs in total at targets while also having the scouting ability. This is my wet dream. This this seems really fun, and on top of this, with the beefy engine that it has, even though this thing's quite heavy at 26.7 tons, still can canter around at a decent pace. And because it's tracked, it means that heavy terrain it does better in than stuff like wheeled vehicles, and on top of that, it has some nice skins. The Japanese have some of the nicest skins in the game. Then we have the beige, grey, green. Look at that. Isn't that absolutely wonderous? Beautiful skin. And then the bicolor green looks okay, bit muddy. Then you have the multicolor, because why not? Just kind of, I can't say that, but I'll say it next time. Then we have some green and brown. Then, of course, the polka dot winter camouflage and the late war winter camouflage, which is a bit more useful. For me, personally, this is my favorite skin of the Japanese, but just for today, we're going to use the multicolored one, just because why not? Let's add a bit of blue to our lives. And let's take it into a test drive, because I think it's very important to understand where the power of this thing is coming from. So the first thing to do is to change this to this, and that means we're taking it. And there are a few things where this is worse than the Bradley at, and there are a few things where this is better than the Bradley at. And I think this is going to come down personal what you like in a tank, or what you like in an armored fighting vehicle. Also, they seem to have taken out the aircraft for this, which is kind of annoying. But basically, the first thing that the Type 89 has is the scouting over the Bradley. What it loses, though, is the stability of the gun. So first of all, let's just fire one of these. Hey up. You can see that the ATGMs are not as fast as the Bradley ones. They're slightly slower. They are mouse controlled though, and they actually can rearm, which is something that the Bradley's ones cannot do. Which is much better. I feel like that's a bug right now though. You can see, right, the acceleration on this machine. Right, let's go. 3, 2, 1. Craziness. Absolute craziness. The acceleration on this machine is great to see. But the problem with it is that it does not have what we would class as a stabilized gun. The gun's a little bit all over the place, and therefore I think it should be relegated to one of the worst cannons that we have at this tier, alongside the Warrior's cannon because of no stabilizer. On top of this, the gun sounds like you're firing flat pancakes. Like, I understand that it will be realistic, but my god does it sound awful. And on top of this, another thing to think about is that you don't actually get that many clips when it comes to this gun. You get 6 clips of ammunition, and that is it with this. And the ammunition consists of 17 rounds, so 17 times 6, whatever that is. What is it? 42, 60, 102 rounds of ammunition, and that to me is just not really good enough. I would like to have more. I understand that it's kind of a low velocity gun and that it is more designed just to finish off targets or do a decent amount to, sides of targets. But something you have to understand about these fighting vehicles like the Bradley, like this, like the Warrior, they're huge. These are not things you can hide easily. And since they're supposed to be scout vehicles, I'm supposed to be able to hide this damn thing. And I'm finding it increasingly hard to be able to hide this. Like here. Let's take an example. So this is the T-10M, Soviet heavy tank, right? Heavy tank. Very big, very bulky. Look how big of a machine the Type 89 is. It's the same damn size as a T10M. It might actually be slightly taller than a T10M. It's definitely as long as it, and pretty much as wide as it as well. Isn't that crazy? It's absolutely insane how fat this thing is, very much alongside the Warrior and the Bradley for being just little fat boys. So with that said, it does have access to the 80 gems though. 80 gems are very easy to control, and they are fast. They're just not as fast as stuff like the toes, which are present on the Bradley. I think personally, I'm going to have a lot of fun with this vehicle. At 8.0, you do have a lineup that you can force around it. Since this thing does have good 80 gems, you can up-tier it, I believe. I think it will be able to do that in a meaningful way. So the Type 74 will get some love. You could also use this as your top-tier vehicle if you really like scouting, you know, throwing the STB in, and also the AA vehicle, the copy of the Gepard that the Japanese have. That to me is a pretty solid 8.0 lineup, and I feel like with these lighter vehicles coming into the game, I hope that they kind of form a meta which is very fast, very interesting, very fun. You know, oh Jesus, alongside, you know, the Bradley, the Warrior, the BMP2, and this. The BMP2 so far has had a lot of success. The Bradley, I'm a little bit worried about. I think it's very bulky, and the fact that its 80 gems are bugged, and also the gun itself doesn't really do a lot. It is stabilized though, so that is nice. And with this machine, I feel like with the lineup that you can build around it, it should be a hell of a lot better. You also have access to smoke grenades, so you fire off 4 at once, and they fire off pretty fast, so they do take ages to actually go down, but because your reverse gear is pretty good, you can get out of trouble pretty quick. But you can see it launches them forward, and this means that they won't be, you know, they won't hit the ground incredibly quickly. Negative 40, just 40 kilometers an hour in reverse, because why not? And at the same time, you see, your gun's pretty well stabilized in reverse. It does have a few issues, but you do have a decent amount of rounds if something goes wrong. I am a little bit worried about the gun and its usefulness. I feel like this should be used primarily or only as a scouting vehicle, and then the 80 gems should be used only if you are in dire need of trouble. I think this is a great support vehicle. Is it a primary vehicle? No, I don't believe so. But overall, I would definitely say this is going to be really, really fun to use. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.